love, joy, and her life's purpose. So Rose, we want to thank you for being here with us today. I'm going to pass it to Hannah for our first question.
Okay.
Thank you so much for being here with us today, Rose. We're really excited. Our first question is, have you been back to Europe since you left? And if so, what was it like?
I've been back to Europe many times, by the way. But the first time I went back to my town, my village, was in 1995. And we actually went on a trip and took 3 days. We went to Czechoslovakia, Hungary, and Poland. So we took 3 days out of the trip from Hungary, and we hired a taxi, and we went to Russia. That's my town is occupied by Russia right now. Okay, so I went to my hometown, and it was kind of weird going back because so many things have changed because this is 50 years later. Okay? So it was okay, very disappointing and very sad to go back to the village where I was raised, but we did it. And I have been back to Europe several times because my husband retired when he was just under 60 years old, and we traveled a lot back here and there. So anyway, but when we did go back in 95, I took my daughter Roxanne with me, okay? And there were still some people that remembered my family, okay? So it was interesting, but it was not exciting. It was sad to see. It was a wonderful village before the war, and now it looked like kind of like a cemetery, so dull and so sad and so not the same like when we were living there. When we lived there, it was an amazing little village. I mean, we had over 1,500 people there, but it was always full of life. But now it didn't look the same at all. A lot of them homes came down. They rebuilt a lot. Of course, the homes were pretty old. I mean, we lived in a 3-room house, no bathroom, no electricity. Yeah. But anyway, it was very interesting to go back, okay?
Yeah, I bet it was a pretty wild difference from your childhood back to compared to when you were last there. Another question for you is, have you stayed in touch with any other survivors, any of the people you came to America with?
Well, we didn't come to America with any survivors, just my husband, who is also a survivor. We came to America in 1951. We were taken here by my husband's relatives. They sent us affidavits, okay? But after the war, we were taken to England for rehabilitation. There was a gentleman by the name of Sir Leonard Montefiore who was looking to sponsor 1,000 Holocaust survivor children under age 16 to bring to England for rehabilitation. So in 1945, in the summer, start like in August. So we went. I didn't go. Sir Leonard Montefiore found 732 kids. He was looking for 1,000, but he couldn't find 1,000 kids. So they were transporting all the children from Prague, Czechoslovakia, to England, Scotland, Ireland, and Wales. Okay, wherever they found hostels, and so that's when I was actually in the last transport to go to. I ended up in Scotland in a hostel with 35, 40 other children. And we were in England, Scotland for about 9 months or so. Then
Let's get back to the question.
Huh?
What was the question?
Ben, I don't know.
What was the question?
What was the question again?
The question was whether you stayed in contact with any other survivors.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, well, we have, so anyway, so we came to the United States, and then we came, after 5 years, we came to San Diego, and there was an organization here called the New Life Club. So we joined the New Life Club, mostly all survivors, okay? So there's not too many survivors left anymore, by the way, okay? Because I'm probably one of the youngest, because I was 14 years old when they took us away, and a lot of them were most of the people were from Poland and Hungary, okay? So, we are in touch with maybe 2 or 3 real survivors, okay? I'm talking about people that were in Auschwitz and stuff like that. But little by little, we're losing a lot of survivors. But we still have an organization called the New Life Club. And we meet once a month. Of course, we haven't the past 3 months. And we get together, we have lunch, and a lot of the people that are in our organization are people that left Europe just before the war. So it's nice to get together with them, and that's about it.
That's pretty amazing that you get to have that contact with them, because I can imagine that unless you experienced it, no matter how much you've learned about the Holocaust, you really can't fully relate unless you went through it. So I'm really glad that you're able to have that connection with other people.
Okay. My father, I met my father in Auschwitz, okay? And he told me to, he said to stay alive so I can tell the world what they're doing to us, okay? I saw him there twice. This was an all-women's group by the organized club, camp. And for 2 days, my father and my brother, they put him there too. But then after I met him the first morning, he repeated the same thing twice for me. Whatever you do, stay alive so you can tell the world what they're doing to us, okay? So I met him because I was walking around to see where we are. And then the next day I brought my 2 sisters, and my father brought my brother, and he repeated the same thing. Whatever you do, stay alive so you can tell the world what they're doing to us. And after that, I never saw my father or my brother again, okay?
In addition to the book, which is an extraordinarily important documentation of what happened to you and what happened to 6 million others. What I'm wondering is what Rose has told her children and her grandchildren, what you want them to do. Are they going to start speaking on your behalf? Are they going to be on podcasts? Are they going to continue your words? Because I feel that it is absolutely critical that children of survivors have very, very strong voices.
So,
Well, listen, my children, we did not speak about the Holocaust till my children were 14 and over, okay? They were too young. We had other things to do besides talk about the Holocaust.
Sure.
We were raising a family, trying to make a living. So when
the answer to the question is, so we can move on to another question.
yeah,
The answer is Rose's family is 100% dedicated. Rose and Max's family.
do they hear you?
Yes, their
Okay.
children and their grandchildren are 100% dedicated to continuing this message. Okay, and it will not stop when Mom is gone. We're creating videos. We're creating a documentary kind of series. Mom will be able to tell her story in first person. The Shoah Foundation has recorded her in holographic form. So someday she could be Princess Leia coming out of R2-D2, telling everybody her story. So you don't have to worry about that one. What was the second question?
The second question was, could you please address if there is a formal network of children of survivors so that they can...
There are. So there's the philanthropic and relief organizations are out there for anyone that's in need. There's still opportunity to try to apply for restitution as an offspring. No, Mom, you're on stage.
Okay.
And this is Ben, her son, answering, because I know those
Why don't you come
technical
behind
things.
me?
She knows the Holocaust. I know the rest. And in San Diego, we have the second generation of the New Life Club. The entire New Life Club is transitioning over to the people in their 60s and some in their 70s. As you know, Mom is about the youngest of her generation in that group, and she's 90. So yes, so there's clubs and organizations, both local and international, that are there for us and support us, and that we could be part of, and to keep telling the story.
Okay, so you see what I'm doing? I have been doing this close to 50 years, talking to schools, churches, synagogues, Rotary clubs, military, to the whole. I've been talking for so many years and telling my story. So this should not happen again, okay?
Thank you so much, Rose, for sharing that. And it's really exciting.
Especially, it's all in my book. The whole history is in the book. And it's exactly what happened. No phony stuff in there. It's just 99% what happened to us in the camps, okay?
We really appreciate hearing your view, and I know I'm really excited to read your book, and I know everyone else is too. I'm going to pass it to Scott to ask the next question.
Okay,
Yeah, so we have a question from Reem. First, they said, your positive spirit and your amazing apparent love of life is contagious with all that you've been through. What advice can you share with us to keep our spirits positive, moving along life's struggles, however much smaller they are compared to what you've gone through?
Let me tell you something. You should never give up on anything you plan on doing or hope to do. Just keep going, and remember, if you have some problems, the next day will be better, okay? And just never give up on hope, because without hope, we don't have anything. So anything you plan on doing, please stay with it. And this is how I think I survived. My father said, the last time I saw him, he says, never give up hope, and make sure you stay alive so you can tell the world what they're doing to us, okay? And I've been doing this for close to, since my son Steve was in middle school at Lewis Junior High. He was 14 years old, he's 61 years old now. So you know how many years I've been talking about what happened to us during the Second World War, okay?
Can you share with us more of your experiences during the rehabilitation process in England? What was that like?
Well, we were 732 kids. Most of us were supposed to be under age 16, but a lot of us were older because we had no identifications of any kind. We lived in hostels for the first 3-4 years, okay? And we learned the language, and we started learning things. Some of us went, some of the kids went to school. Most of the kids did not go back to school. I had 3.5 years of education. What 14-year-old or what 10-year-old wants to go back to school, right? So as I said, we all were taught all kinds of things in the hostels. And actually, they were getting us ready to go to Israel, because that was our purpose, is to have a country of our own, okay? And a lot of us did go, but during that time, between 1945 and 1950, there were so many problems in Israel, okay, that a lot of us decided that if we go, and a lot of us kids got killed because they would go to Israel, it was actually Palestine at that time. They would sneak in at night on ships, okay, because it was not Israel yet, it was Palestine. But some of us were very much for Israel, and they would come in and they put them right into the military, the girls and the boys, okay, if you were 18 and older. And a lot of them were killed the first week or 10 days. So I decided I'm not going to go to Israel because I just wasn't ready for all that. And then, of course, little by little, we were in hostels and trying to make things good, and everything was fine for us, okay? And we put the past behind us somehow and continue and looked forward for a better future, okay?
We have a question from Ayushi. She wants to know if you met any memorable people at the camp, good or bad.
We did never stay. First of all, we came to Auschwitz, okay? And Auschwitz was a camp where you come and you leave. It was a transitional camp, okay? Nobody stays there too long. They brought us there so they can take us to factories. The ones that survived are the ones that were supposed to work in factories. So we never met anybody that we really remembered after the war, because they were coming and going, okay? So I don't remember anybody. Of course, I was in Auschwitz for 4 months because they never selected me to go to a factory to work. I was skin and bone. And we had 1,000 women in every barrack. And when they needed, say, 200-300 women to go to a factory to work, we would go line up. And there were still always plenty of people in the same barrack. So after I went through selections for 2-3 times, or maybe 4 times, they always would put me in the gas chamber line, because I was skin and bone. After being there 10-12 days, I was skin and bone, because the food was not for human beings, not even for animals, okay? So we went through selections, and each time with selections, they put my 2 sisters to a different line and me in another line. and that other line was a gas chamber. And you know, when you're in a place like this, you learn all kinds of things, what to do to survive. And I was told, if they don't keep you together, get out of the line and make sure nobody sees you, okay? We found out that we had two cousins in Barak number 2 who were in charge of giving out the food. You know what that means? So we went over there and we would get an exercise of bread every day and maybe something else. This is how I survived. If we wouldn't have known that we have cousins in that barrack, we would have never survived, I don't think. I don't know, because it was so horrible, unbelievable. So of course, after being there a month, my cousins were selected to go to factory tour. So we were there now again without any help from anybody. So finally, after being about 2 months in that camp, they came to our barrack. They needed 300 women to go to Freudenthal to be taken to factory to work. So I knew I wouldn't be selected because I was skin and bone. I was always on the, young girl I was then. Finally, we were selected to go to a factory to work, okay? We were in Freudenthal, Germany. It's 300 women, okay? And while we were working in the factory, they had camps for, soldiers not too far away from us, okay? American soldiers and British soldiers, they were also in camps because they were there waiting for the war to end, okay? They were like us, okay? And they would come to our barracks to help with whatever needed to be done in the barracks, okay? And I met a gentleman in the barrack, and his name was Joe. I'd never found out his last name, which I'm always sorry. And he was an American soldier, and they were treated a lot better than us, okay? So he would bring over chocolate to the barrack, and give it to some of us girls and some of me. So it was amazing to meet somebody. Of course, we couldn't speak English, and this was somebody from the United States. But anyway, it was really something special to meet American soldiers, not far, also being in a camp like us, okay? So anyway, so we were there for about 8 months. And of course, in 1945 of May 8th, we were liberated. So what's next, or did I miss some of it?
So we have a question from Jennifer. She wants to know what long-term health effects have you had to deal with due to the camp conditions?
Well, I tell you one thing. After the camp, I was pretty good, I guess. But of course, the first couple of months in Auschwitz, a lot of us were very sick. But we survived, okay? We never gave up hope. We survived, okay? But then after we were liberated, I had a lot of problems with my teeth because while we were in Freudenthal, they filled my teeth with cement. So after the war, after I had 3-4 kids, most of my teeth on the top especially, they had to be pulled because they couldn't save them, okay? So that's the only. And then within no time, there was not much help for medical help at all, okay, in the camp.
I'm going to pass it over to Hannah for our next question.
Rose, it's really amazing hearing your story. I'm wondering if you could maybe expand on how you met your husband. When I heard about it, I really enjoyed that part, and we'd love to hear more.
We were brought to Scotland, okay, in 1946. Actually, my transport was the last transport going from Czechoslovakia to Scotland. We had hostels in Ireland, Wales, Scotland, and England, as far as I know. So my group was the last group of about 30 kids. We were in Scotland for about 8 months, and then after 8 months, kids are finding relatives all over the world because we are all homeless. None of our parents survived, okay, after the war. Nobody came back after the war. From parents, we had probably over 175, 200 people in my family. A dozen of us came back from the war. Anyway, so we were in Scotland for 8 months, and then the hostel emptied out because kids are going to Israel, kids are going to the United States, Bolivia, Australia. So we were about 12 of us left, so we went from Scotland to England to a hostel in Bedford. And that's where I met my husband. They were mostly all boys, about 30 boys in this hostel in Bedford. And they introduced us, we were 6 girls and 6 boys, and they introduced us the next day after when we got there. And there was a young man standing in the back row, and I said, that's the man I'm going to marry. That's just how I felt. I saw his face and I said, that's for me, okay? And I really didn't meet him yet. So he was really he's very good looking. And of course, it took me a while to get him because a lot of these boys in the hostel, girlfriends from the town hostel, they like the Jewish boys. They know what's good, okay? So anyway, so he had a girlfriend. So we were in Bedford about a year and a half or so. And I would say the last month or so that we were in Bedford with all the boys, 6 or 8 girls of us, we started getting more friendly because his girlfriend knew that he was going to leave. So they kind of were apart practically. So we were taken to, okay, and they put us in hostels or different homes where people like to give out room, bedroom and bathroom use in some homes. So Max and I ended up in the same neighborhood and we started dating. And of course we fell in love. I was in love with him from the first I saw him. And within, a year and a half or so, we got engaged and we got married. And he was my life. I was his, okay? So this is how I met my husband. So if anybody, a young man that you want or a girl that you want, go after it. Don't ever give up hope, okay? Because you never know what tomorrow brings. All right? I hope the questions was good. The answer, I should say, I hope was good. All right?
Your answer was amazing.
Remember, if you see somebody, don't give up.
I'll try.
Okay.
Another question for you, Rose.
Yes.
I know you've talked a lot about your gold chain from your family, and I'm wondering if you could elaborate on that part of your story and how the beginning to the end.
Before we left the house, okay, we were all entitled, every person entitled to one bag, okay? So just before we left the house, my father, we didn't have jewelry in those days, okay? The only jewelry that my father and mother had was a wedding band, and my mother had earrings and a necklace, maybe a couple of necklaces, and a watch, and that's about, my father had a watch, my mother didn't, okay? There was no jewelry in those days. So my father put this little few pieces of jewelry together in a shoe polish box, and he said to my 2 sisters and me, to Helen and Judy, come with me, I put a few pieces of jewelry into this box, and I want to hide it so you'll know when you come back from the war, you know where it is. So my sisters didn't want to have any part of it, so I said to my father, I'm going to go with you. You see, this is how I survived, by always doing things that other people didn't want to do. I was always willing to do things, okay? So my father and I, the jewelry was in the shoe polish box, and we hid it between the ceiling and the wall and the house. We lived in a 3-room house, by the way, okay? And then my father covered it with dirt and I don't know what else, so nobody should notice it. He must have dug a hole into that between the wall and the ceiling, all right? So after we came back from the war, I knew exactly where the jewelry was, and I ended up with my father's watch, the chain from the watch, from his pocket watch, okay? Every day, okay? The minute I get out of bed, this goes on my neck. So, and I feel my father is with me, okay? And I think maybe that's why I'm living so many years, because I don't give up on hope. And remembering what my father said, stay alive so you can tell the world what they're doing to us.
Going with that, it really seems like the common thread for you is that you were again and again able to kind of think really quickly and get yourself out of situations that could have ended poorly, and you just kept dodging the bullets as came. I'm wondering what how you did that. Like when you were that young, when you were 14, how did you keep kind of sneaking your way around in order to stay alive?
Well, I was lucky in somehow. Maybe God was with me, okay? I just didn't give up, okay? When we had to go for selections, after the 3-4 times that we did and we were not selected because of me, my sisters would be always selected to go to the factory. We promised my father we would not go if we are not together. So just by not giving up hope and doing things sometimes that's not proper, and you get away with it, okay? So they would come and they would meet 300 women or 200 or whatever. And if we don't, and a lot of the people did the same thing I did. This is how a lot of us survived too, okay? Just to give and everything, you cannot do that all the time. Sometimes you have to do what you think is right, okay?
Another question that we got was, it's kind of 2 parts. So what does you and how do you feel when you look at your tattoo today?
You know, I never look at my tattoo. My kids didn't see my tattoo till they were probably 10 years or older. You know, when they did see my tattoo, I don't know if anybody can see it. Okay, how do we do this? Yeah, does you see this? You know what, my kids, they would ask what my tattoo, I told them it was my phone number, because I did not want to talk about the Holocaust to my kids till they were older, okay? So once you got the tattoo, that means you're saved, because they're sending you to factories to work. All these people that went into the gas chambers, none of them were tattooed, okay? And actually, I don't think they even counted those people. So anyway, I don't know if I finished the whole question. You want to repeat the question?
It was what it kind of means to you and what you feel.
It doesn't mean anything. But the thing is, it saved me. How is that? Because once they tattooed you, that means you're going to work, okay? Not the gas chambers. But let me tell you sometime, even when they tattooed the people the last minute, they changed their minds for some reason or another in Auschwitz. And some of them may have even gone into the gas chambers, right? Okay. But most of the times the tattoos were given to you after you were selected to go to work, okay? Next question. Are you there?
Yes, question we have is, keeping in mind your transition to the United States, there are also many refugees from all walks of life immigrating to the U.S. today. What advice would you give to those seeking life, liberty, and the pursuit of as you did when you first came back, or when you first came to America?
Well, listen, this is the best country in the world. Do you know that? We should all be happy that we are here in this country, because here everybody has an opportunity to do what they want and what they're looking for. So when we came to this country, we already spoke perfect English, by the way. Plus, you can't tell that I spoke perfect English. And we just went to work and we worked hard to do everything that we needed to do. And we were also happy to come to this country, because you know how many people are trying to come to America these days? Everybody has the opportunity to become whatever they want, okay? And this is the best thing in the world, to live in the United States, okay? So you have to work hard, okay? And everybody has the opportunity to come to whatever they wish to do. I don't know if this is the right answer.
All of your answers are the right answer. We love hearing from you. Another question.
Hey, one thing, honey, listen, I'm 90 years old, and sometimes memories are not the same as when you're young, okay? So, sometimes you have to repeat the question twice, okay? Okay.
Another question we have for you is, can you remember a time when you were most scared during all of this?
Well, we were always scared. You mean during the camps?
Yeah, is there any particular moments out, or what do you think of?
The worst times were when they were coming to select people to go to factories to work, okay? Do we have a chance to get selected or not? That's another thing. Because so many of us went straight into the gas chambers because they didn't select them to go to a factory to work. Some of them could barely stand on their feet, let me tell you, okay? So, but we tried very hard. You know, we had enough every day to be counted. When some of us were skin and bone, and you know what we used to do to show them that we're still alive? We would pinch our cheeks to put color in our face. Do you know that? We were so in bad shape. So we just had to stay around, and, you know, we go to a factory to work. A lot of people gave up. They just couldn't take it anymore. They would go into the electric fences, put their hand on the electric fence, 20 seconds later they were dead. You see blood coming out of the nose and they're all dead. So many people gave up hope. And there's so many people that were alone. Another thing, when you were in camp alone, you had a less chance to survive because you didn't have anyone to help you around, okay? So we were 3 of us together, so we helped each other quite a lot. So that's how the thing is, you never give up hope in your life, no matter what, okay?
A question from the audience member, Jennifer. She wants to know played and how faith helped you in camp.
If we didn't have faith, we wouldn't survive, okay? We wouldn't. We were just hoping God is going to help us. Unfortunately, a lot of us did not survive. So who knows where God was when this was happening, okay? Maybe he took a vacation. I really don't know. I'm asking that question myself all the time. Where was God when this was going on? And we were such a religious people, Jewish people. We went exactly according to the Bible. We were Orthodox Jews, okay? And a lot of people just couldn't take it. They gave up and that was it. But most of the people that survived, I believe they were stronger in believing that tomorrow is going to be a better day, okay?
Yeah, it sounds like you really had to have some sort of driving force behind you, or else it's already near impossible. I can't even imagine. Another question is, what was it like with your sisters, and how did you help each other out through all of this?
First of all, if you were alone, you had a much less chance to survive because you had no help from anybody. We were together, okay? We promised my father, I promised my 2 sisters, we were going to stay together, okay? And we did that. That's why we stayed in Auschwitz that long, because they would never select me to go to work, okay? Until I stole the transport, okay? So we were there for each other, okay? And after the war, we went home. And actually, one of my sisters stayed in my village. She stayed and got married, one of the Jewish boys that came back from the war. But Helen and me, we went to Prague, went back to Prague, and then we were taken. And somehow, it's unusual that we were separated, but that's what life was all about. We did what we thought was best for each of us. And my sister said it's a good idea for me to go to England, you know. And she also said, Helen said that someday we will be together. Of course, it took quite a few years before we did get together, but I left my village in 1945, in 1945 in the summer, probably I would say July or something, because we stayed quite a few weeks in my village. And after we decided to leave, we went to the train station, and Helen By the way, when we were waiting to get on a train in Europe after the camps were liberated, we went to the train station to get on a train and to go home. So sometimes we would have to stay at the train station 3-4 days before we could get on a train because the trains did not run late. So while we were at the train station, my sister Helen met a Czech soldier, Jewish soldier, who was also going to report to his group. And they fell in love, okay? So he was a handsome, beautiful man. As I said, we were 3-4 days at the train station. We were having a good time. And finally, this young man, he left and he gave my sister Helen his key to his house in Prague. He said, you go home, see who survived the war, and then you come to Prague, you're gonna live with me. So of course we went home and waited for my father. He came home and everything else. And then as soon as we found out that my father is not alive, because people were coming back after the war, day by day, and 1 person, 2 people would come back, because we were all looking to see who survived our families. So after being back home, say 10 days, we found out that my father and my brother were killed during the war by the SS. So Helen went back to Prague because she had the key to his house in Prague. And then Judy and I stayed behind another couple of weeks. And finally we decided it's best to leave. So we tried to leave, but the trains were not running too often. We had to stay at the train station for 3 days before we could get on the train. So Judy said, I'm going back to my hometown. There's a young man who got his house back in the village. He wants to marry me and he's really nice. So my sister Judy went back home and I stayed at the train station another 6 or 8 hours and then I went to Prague. And then she stayed home and they fell in love and they got married. And anyway, so this is occupied Russia, by the way. That part of the world was occupied by Russia, okay? It used to be Hungary and Czechoslovakia. So in 1960, my sister Judy, she had a son and she never recovered from the war. She was kind of sick, okay? So she had a young man, and then when the boy was like 12 years old, she died. There were so many diseases in her body that she could not survive anymore. So I never saw, after 1960, we used to correspond. I haven't seen my sister Judy until, since 1945 because she stayed in my village. So in 1960, she died, and that was, you know, so I don't think she was only like, she wasn't even 50, she wasn't even 40 years old when she died. Anyway, but she did have a son, and the son actually is in San Diego. And he came to the United States in 1967, and the father is gone already a long time. So anyway, that's what it is, okay?
What was it like meeting her son?
It was very interesting. He was a young man of 18 or 19, okay? Somehow Russia allowed certain people to come to this country, and they were one of the people. And he did very well. He was a young man, and he's still here. He has 2 children, and he has a couple of grandchildren now, and life continues, okay?
We have a question from Richard. Richard wants to know what message you have for younger generations.
Well, younger generations, just work very hard, go after whatever you want, never give up hope. What else should I say? Have a good life, okay? Enjoy your parents and your family, and listen to your mom and dad, whatever they say, because parents are always right, because parents always want to do the best for the children, right? Just do what your heart wants to do, okay? And have a good life.
We have another question. The question is, what advice you have given all the uncertainty right now in the world? You know, everyone's kind of feeling like the rug has been pulled from under their feet, and it's pretty fair to say that almost everyone's life has changed, at least to a degree. But clearly this isn't a new thing for you. You've experienced it before. What advice would you have for people who are feeling this way for the first time, right?
This will be over pretty soon, let me tell you, okay? We'll go back to normal lives. This is a very unusual thing. It's very unusual. Who would ever think of something like this happening, right? Why didn't they catch that disease earlier? The world knew about this disease for probably 3-4 months beforehand, especially in China, and they kept it a secret. Why would they kept this a secret? So it's unfortunate that this happened, okay? And hopefully we'll all get over it and go back to normal life. That's what we have to do. Forget it and stay and do what you have to do to stay alive, okay? Don't go out without your mask. Probably I should have had my mask on now too. But it's very unusual. Who would ever dream of such a horrible thing happening, okay? I mean, we are having such a we are in a beautiful country. Our leaders should have never allowed this to happen, okay? President Trump knew about this probably in December or before, what's going on. And he kept it a secret from us. And because if we would have known what's going on 3-4 months earlier, we would have all been more careful. And maybe this wouldn't have been so bad as it is now. We're losing so many innocent people into this horrible disease, okay? But what we have to do is hope that it'll end soon and we'll be able to go out and do whatever we want. Make sure to wear your mask when you go out. And if you don't wear a mask, stay 5-6 feet apart. That's what I do. I don't like to wear a mask. But of course, I haven't even gone much out. I mean, I go out and walk. That's about it. I try to stay away from the malls, and hopefully we'll all get over it and everything will be fine. We'll go back to normal, and it's actually just beginning to happen now. So just be careful what you're doing, okay?
I have a question from Parisa. She wants to know what you do for fun.
What I do for fun. I like to play cards. I play mahjong. I like to play with my kids and my grandkids. I have a great-grandchild now who's a year old, okay? And by the way, I lost my husband 3 years and 4 months ago. We were married 67 years. He was the only man in my life. And I miss him terribly. Nobody can imagine how I miss him. It's just unbelievable to be alone because I was never really alone in my life. So, but anyway, just enjoy your children